gruppo di Star Italia alla fiera di Friedrichshafen o Friedrichshafen o la mecca dei radioamatori. Siamo qui per vedere che cosa significa il di stare in Europa. Stiamo preparando per andare alla cena, serata VIP, dove incontreremo chi ha progettato il di Star mondiale e alcuni dei nostri cari amici come Ivo di L9 MB, Joachim, quindi chi in Europa ha portato il di Star.
Yes, we have lovely weather. Lots of guys. Gianluca. I'm Chris.
Congratulations! I finally meet you. Very good.
Welcome in Europe. After, I think I'm going in Italy. I have real trouble doing
Eine Grossbier. Molto grande.
Thank you for having us over here. I'm afraid our presentation is all going to be in English tonight. I'm Jim McClellan, November 5, Mike India Juliet. This is Fred Varian, Whiskey Delta 5, Echo Romeo Delta. Together, we do quite a lot in support of D-Star. What I'm going to do tonight is walk you through a little bit of our history, how we got to where we are now, and where we can go with some of the technology and what we do with it. Okay. I start every presentation with this slide. D-Star is not necessarily what we expect. But anybody can be successful with D-Star if you'll do two things. First, forget everything you think you know about repeaters, and forget everything you think you know about networking. That's not an insult to anybody. But D-Star is designed for a different environment than we were expecting. And if you go into this with an open mind, it is much easier to be successful. And we can go from there. Existing knowledge will absolutely help if you'll ignore your assumptions and approach it with an open mind. This is the beginning of where we started. The first several slides are a presentation that we did in 2005 at Dayton. You're right. No, presentation was 05. We began in 05. So you'll see the background change and stuff. These are actually slides from that first presentation. We began really being involved with D-Star December 3rd of 2003. I had seen the ID1 23 centimeter radio at Dayton, and I quite honestly annoyed the folks at ICOM America. I kept calling them and calling them and calling them. Nobody could tell me anything about it. There was a ICOM vendor-specific weekend at our local amateur radio dealership called Texas Towers. So we said, ICOM, if you're going to make a big presentation this entire weekend out of your radios, why don't you bring your D-Star system? We have a good repeater site. We'll help set it up for your demo, and we can have a lot of fun. You all know that's the way we all work. Bring your gear, we'll play with it. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. We put in their RP1 repeater system, which came with their supplied filters, their supplied antenna, and we had a few surprises along the way. This is what the system that we installed looked like a little later. It had the filter packs, a canceller, a duplexer, the RP1 23 centimeter voice repeater, and a RP1 controller and data radio. You can see that we've added, by the time this picture was taken, a gateway router and a gateway PC. On that first evening, it was the typical dark, stormy night you hear about in all the stories. There was a torrential rain. Nobody wanted to get out in it. But we had about 27 people show up that night. When I say mediocre results, the radio system, the repeater system, as we installed it, did not work very well. And 17 miles away, we couldn't hit the repeater. Now, let me take a brief break there and tell you a little bit about us. We have been involved with D-Star for 5 years now. I am not an ICOM employee. Fred actually is now. He was invited to go to work for them. The reason we have been successful in D-Star is because in our conversations with other users, we are absolutely frank and honest. We'll tell you what we made work, we'll tell you what we couldn't make work. And when I said the first slide, if you'll ignore your assumptions, or forget everything you think you know about networking, that was 14 months of me not doing that caused that. So we'll tell you a little bit about what did not work, what we did to make it work, and how we went from there. Okay? We went through and found 3 areas that caused the system to not perform well at our site. And I'm very specific about that because I'm sure it worked very well at other places, it just did not do so well at ours. The site environment was very harsh, and I'll go into more detail on that in a minute. The duplexer and filter performance were unsatisfactory in that environment. And then the antenna performance was not what we expected. We've had analog FM repeaters up for many years on 23 centimeters, 220, 440, 2 meters. We had a general understanding of what we should expect to see in performance, and we were not getting it. So we went through and found some problems. This is our site. That is the top of a building that's 922 feet. It's 74 stories in downtown Dallas. As you can look out at the horizon and see, the terrain is very flat, relatively speaking.
Line of sight from that building to the horizon is 83 miles.
Now, if you look very closely at the roof, you'll see many, many antennas. All but 2 of those are transmit antennas. The receive antennas are down 4 floors in panel arrays wrapped around the building in community antennas. There are no community receive antennas for 23 centimeters. Our only option was to duplex on single antennas in the middle of about 300 transmit antennas, several megawatts of effective radiated power. So, as you might imagine, the RF environment on the top of that building is very harsh. That's why I said our site environment was much of our problem. The duplexers and filters, we went through many, many iterations. We finally came up with requirement for pass notch duplexers on the voice repeater. We found that the pass filtering in front of the receivers made a tremendous difference. And when we learned that, we put a 10 megahertz wide window filter on the data transceiver.